When you hear the name Jacques-Yves Cousteau, what do you think of? For most of us, it's that iconic red beanie, right? The guy who basically brought the entire ocean into our living rooms. But the real story, well, it's way more dramatic and complicated than you probably think. So let's dive in.
I mean, listen to that. That right there was Cousteau's whole philosophy in a nutshell. For him, the ocean wasn't just this big blue thing to go look at. No, it was this place of total freedom, a place where we could finally shake off gravity and, well, fly. It's a really powerful idea, and honestly, it's what fueled his entire life's work.
So how does a guy in the French Navy end up becoming the ocean's biggest champion? Well, you can bet it wasn't a straight line. It took a pretty catastrophic accident, the pressures of a world at war, and later on, a discovery so shocking it turned him from a simple explorer into a full-blown crusader. Let's get into how it all happened.
Okay, first things first, we're starting his story, but funnily enough, we're not starting in the water. We're starting with his eyes on the sky. See, Cousteau's first big dream was to be a pilot. He wanted to fly planes, soar above it all. The ocean? It wasn't even on his radar yet, not even a little bit.
So you can see here, his life was on a pretty clear track. Military career, gunnery officer, and then 1936 happens. A really, really bad car accident. It just shattered his bones, and with them, his dream of ever becoming a pilot. But then, while he's recovering, a friend gives him something, just a simple pair of underwater goggles. And that tiny little moment, it changed everything.
He puts them on, dips his head under the surface, and boom! For the very first time, he can actually see what's down there. He called it a jungle of fish, this incredible, vibrant world he had no idea even existed. And just like that, the dream of flying in the sky was gone, totally replaced by this new obsession, flying through the water.
All right, so Cousteau's got this new passion, this vision, right? But there's a huge problem. I mean, we're talking the 1940s here. Diving back then was, well, it was awful. It was clumsy, dangerous, and you were barely free to move. So if he wanted to explore this new underwater jungle, he realized he'd have to invent a way to actually live in it first.
And this really shows you the massive gap between what was possible and what he was dreaming of. On one side, you've got the reality of diving in the 40s. These guys in clumsy, heavy suits, literally tethered to a boat with an air hose. You couldn't go anywhere. And on the other side, that was Cousteau's vision. Complete, untethered freedom. The ability to move around like a fish. Just total autonomy.
Let's dig into the tech problems for a sec. Those hard hat suits, you were basically a puppet on a string, completely dependent on the ship above. Then you had other things, like the Le Prior apparatus, but it just blasted air out constantly, whether you were breathing it or not. So you got what, a few minutes underwater? It was nothing. Nothing out there could give him the freedom he was looking for.
The big breakthrough came at a pretty wild time, during the German occupation of France. Cousteau meets this engineer, Émile Gagnon. Now, Gagnon had designed this gas regulator for cars, and together they figured out how to adapt it. What they created was the demand regulator, a total game changer. It was a device that only gave you air when you breathed in. So simple, but so incredibly efficient. It changed absolutely everything. They called it the Aqua-Lung, and with it, they basically handed humanity the keys to the underwater kingdom.
So, okay, he's basically unlocked the door to this whole new world. But for Cousteau, just seeing it himself wasn't enough, not even close. He knew he had to show it to everybody. His next big mission became bringing the ocean, in all its glory, to the entire planet.
And wow, did he ever show it. His film from 1956, The Silent World, was a total sensation all over the globe. You have to remember, this was one of the very first times anyone had seen color documentary footage from underwater. It was mind-blowing. It won the top prize at Cannes, the Palme d'Or, and an Academy Award. And that was just the start. He'd go on to win 3 Oscars in his career.
And then came TV. Take a look at this number, 40. That's how many Emmy nominations his show, The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau, racked up. It was huge. It made him a household name. Every week, millions of people were tuning in to see the latest adventure aboard his famous ship, the Calypso.
But you know, his real genius wasn't just in the technology or the camera work. It was in the storytelling. He didn't just show you a fish. He gave that fish a personality, a story. Now, some scientists at the time were critical. They said it wasn't scientific enough. But you can't argue with the results. He made people care. He forged this emotional connection. He made you feel like you knew the creatures living down there. He basically built an army of ocean lovers from scratch.
But here's where the story takes a turn. As Cousteau and his crew on the Calypso kept exploring, crisscrossing the globe, they started seeing something really, really disturbing. That incredible, vibrant world they were showing everyone, well, it was disappearing right in front of them. And this realization triggered the biggest, most important transformation of his life.
This right here, this is the number that changed him forever. In 1970, after 20 years of exploring, Cousteau went public with a shocking announcement. He said that in his own lifetime, he'd personally witnessed a 40% drop in marine biodiversity. A 40% drop. Think about that. The guy who taught the world how beautiful the ocean was now had to become the guy who warned us it was dying.
So the explorer became an activist. It's as simple as that. In 1973, he started the Cousteaus Society, using his worldwide fame as a megaphone for change. And he got stuff done. He went up against his own government, the French government, to stop them from dumping radioactive waste into the Mediterranean. And he won. And maybe his biggest win of all, he led this huge global petition that was absolutely key in getting Antarctica protected from exploitation for 50 years.
So there's no denying Cousteau's impact. It was massive. But history is never that simple, is it? To really get the full picture, we've got to look past that red beanie and dive into some of the more complex and, yeah, sometimes troubling parts of his legacy.
Which brings us to the big question. Was Jacques Cousteau this perfect, flawless hero? Well, if you look at the historical record, especially with the benefit of hindsight, the picture gets a lot more complicated.
Okay, let's be real about this. Some of the things they did in his early films are pretty shocking by today's standards. They used dynamite to survey fish populations, they staged scenes. There's this one infamous scene in The Silent World where the crew slaughters a whole bunch of sharks. It's tough to watch, but, and this is really important, Cousteau himself later said he deeply regretted those actions. His evolution from adventurer to conservationist was real. He changed because the world he was seeing was changing, was dying. His own views evolved, and that's a key part of his story.
And the complexities didn't end when he died. His legacy actually became this source of conflict. A really public, pretty bitter feud broke out between his widow, Francine, and his son from his first marriage, Jean-Michel, over who got to control the Cousteau name. It got messy. So today, you've actually got a few different organizations run by different parts of the family, all trying to carry on his work in their own way.
But look, despite all the complications, all the controversies, this is what it boils down to. This is the idea he really wanted to leave us with. It's such a powerful statement. He believed that protecting the Earth isn't just a nice thing to do, it's a basic fundamental right for all the generations that come after us. And really, that's the big takeaway. Jacques Cousteau's greatest gift wasn't the Aqua-Lung or the films, as amazing as they were. It was that he created this deep, emotional connection between us and the ocean. He made us fall in love with that silent world. So the question he leaves for us, the question his whole life's work poses, is a pretty heavy one. Is the love he created going to be enough to save it?